Yeah. This you just unmuted me. Now you need to let me share my video.
Okay, okay.
Hello, this is Ryan, the presenter. I don't know if you can hear us, if you can hear me, but we have some technical difficulties right now. We're working through them, and we should get things up and running in the next couple of minutes. Okay. Okay. My name is Ryan Wade. I'm your presenter today. We apologize for the late start. We're a couple minutes late. We ran into a couple of technical difficulties, but we got that taken care of. So now we can get started with the presentation. Okay. So again, my name is Ryan Wade. I'm an advanced unified data analytics coach, consultant, and I specialize in the Microsoft data platform. Some of the programming languages I use on a day-to-day basis are the programming languages that you see listed on the screen. And today we're going to use Python. We're going to use Python to extract data from the United States Census, and we're going to use that data to visualize it in Power BI. So in addition to me being a data analytic consultant, I work for an organization called Blue Granite. It's a consulting firm that is a Microsoft partner and also a partner of a company called Databricks. Databricks is a big data platform that allows you to do data science and advanced data analytics at scale. At Blue Granite, we're fortunate enough to, because we're Microsoft partners and because we're Databricks partners, we're fortunate enough to provide some solutions to our clients using cutting edge technologies. In addition to being a consultant, I will soon to be a published author. I'm in the tail end of writing a book. The title is Advanced Analytics in Power BI with R and Python. That's due to be out within the next couple months. So with all that being said, let's get into what this presentation is going to be about. This presentation, as I said earlier, what we're going to do is we are going to use Python to extract income data, median income data from the census. Now, the census has a wealth of data. There's over close to 30,000 data points that the United States Census provides data on. And unfortunately, it's not the easiest data to get to. And because of that, a lot of people are not taking advantage of it. So hopefully after this session, after you see what the type of data that you can extract from the United States Census for free, hopefully some of you all will take that knowledge and want to run with it. And you will say, okay, if Ryan was able to do what he did in this presentation, maybe I can tap that same data source and use it to do other things. So with that being said, our end goal is we're going to take this data from the United States Census, which is going to be medium income data by race. So we can see how African Americans compare to other races. And then once we get that data, we're going to take that big data set that we're going to generate from calling the Census API, and we're going to take that data, put it into Power BI so that we can visualize on that data. Okay, so with that being said, we will first go into the part of the analysis where we go to the use Python to extract the census data from the United States Census. And what we're going to use in order to show how that is done is what is called, we're going to use what is called a Jupyter Notebook. Now I can't see the chat window. Deja, are you available? Okay, I guess not. So with the, I can't see the chat window right now, so I don't see if there's any comments going on right now. But I was going to try to get a feel for the crowd to see if there's anyone that's in attendance today that are familiar with the Jupyter Notebook. Just to give you a brief description of the Jupyter Notebook, the Jupyter Notebook is a tool that's used in data science. And in data science, it's probably almost as popular as Microsoft Excel worksheets. Now with the Jupyter Notebook, what you can do is it gives you the ability to integrate code within a document that has rich text and rich annotations that describe your code. So what you will see me doing as I go through this notebook, describing how to acquire data from the United States Census, you'll see how elegantly I'm able to do that within a document that gives a good description of what I'm doing. So to start off, what I do, I'm gonna clear out this output that we already have from a previous session so we can start anew. It's gonna take a quick second to do. So now that we have the notebook cleared out and ready for this demonstration, let's go through and step through the code. So what we need to do is we need to use Python to go out to the Census API to acquire the data that we need. And in this situation, the data that we need is median income data by race at 3 different geographies. The first geography that we needed at is at the whole country level, the whole US level. The second level of geography that we need the data at is at the state level. And the third level is at what the United States Census called the place. You can think of the place level as the level where you have your cities and towns. So to start off the process, what we need to do is we need to load in some libraries. Now, you can think of, for those of you that's new to programming, you can think of a library in Python as a collection of modules and functions that perform tasks that you will have to do or write out by hand if you have those modules and functions available to you. So what the Pandas library does and the NumPy library does for us in this presentation is it will allow us to do some data manipulation. And it will also allow us to view our data in what is called a tabular data set. And you'll see that in a couple of slides. And then also we're using the census data library. The census data library will allow us to easily communicate with the Census API. The next thing we need to do is we need to get what the census called variables. We need to get the variables that are associated with the median income. Now, I want to take a little pause right here. And the pause I want to take is to some of you that may be new to Python or new to programming, some of the things that you see here may seem a little technical to you. And some of the code that I'm presenting to you, for those of you that are new, may go over your head. don't worry about that, because if this is something that you're very interested in and you want to take a deeper dive in, to all the attendees that attend today's workshop, I will give a free complimentary day-long workshop that will allow us to go into the code much deeper so you can get a better understanding. So with that being said, what this cell does right here is it goes out to the Census API, and it allows us to find the variables or the data points that the census have that is related to median family income. Now you see the data type that's returned, it's not real readable. A lot of us, when we get a data set back, we like our data in a tabular format. And the data type that we have here is a Python data type called a list. To be more specific, it's a list of tuples. And again, we'll go over this in more depth if you decide to take the free workshop that will take place in October. But we want our data set in a nicer format, you know, more of like a tabular format. And we can easily do it using this code in the cell that I have highlighted, and you'll see that code reformatted the data into a tabular data set that we're used to working with. But there are some additional formats that we need to do to this data set. And one of those formatting that we need to do is we need to expand the concept and label columns so that we can see the text that's in those columns. If we do that using the code in this cell, again, all the code will be explained more thoroughly in our workshop. You'll see after we run that code that does the extra formatting, you see now we can see all the text that's in both the concepts field and also the labels field. Now the concept field was a field that we were querying to see if it had any information on median income in it. So we scroll down, we're looking for median income information by race. And we look at some of these, like the one on, for the record for index 31, we see that it's dealing with median family income, but not by race. It's dealing with median family income by family, type by presence of own children under 18. That's not what we're looking for. So let's scroll through this data set and see if we can find the variables that we're looking for. And we found them. Starting at index 3. At index 3, we see that all of the variables that begins with B19113A and B19113 followed by a character, those are the variables that we want that are associated with race. You see A is associated with median income for whites. You see B is for African Americans or blacks, and so on and so forth. So now that we were able to locate the variables we need to put that information, we need to package it together and send it in a query to the Census API to let the Census API know what variables we want to get information on. So we package it up into a data structure called a list, which we already went over. And again, the technical stuff in this workshop, we will go over thoroughly in the workshop. That would be much longer over a course of a day if you decide to go with a deeper dive. So in the cell here that we already activated, you see that we created a variable that holds all the variables or data points that we want to get information on. And these are variables or data points that are broken out by race. And then this second one, this cell here, is creating another variable that's using a data type in Python that's known as a, sorry, can you guys hear me? Okay, I'm not getting any responses, I'm assuming. So the dictionary is a data type that uses key value pairs. And a key value pair is a data type that, again, we'll go over more thoroughly in the workshop, but in this situation, we would use the dictionary data type to rename the columns, and you'll see why later on. So after we identify the columns that we want to use, the next thing we need to do is define the geography that we want. Now, as I said earlier, we're going to use 3 different types of queries. We're going to use one query to the Census API to get the median income by race. And it's going to return one record for us. It's going to give us the median income for for African Americans, for whites, for Hispanics, and Asians, and the other groups. And then the second query that we're going to send to the API is a query at the state level. So we're going to get that same information, but it's going to be broken out by state for Indiana, Illinois, Florida, so on and so forth. And then the third query that we're going to send to the Census API will be at the place level. And that, as I said earlier, you can think of places as cities and towns, so that we'll be able to get the median income information for Atlanta, Georgia, for Indianapolis, Indiana, Chicago, Illinois, and so on and so forth. So we define our geography here, and again, all the technical stuff will be explained more thoroughly in the workshop. So now that we have the information we need to find to do our query, and that is the variables that we want to get data on and the geography that we want to get the data at, we can run this code right here, and this is querying the Census API, and it's returning the median income information, in this instance at the country level. We run this is doing some, it's resetting the index. It's a technical thing that we will go over more thoroughly in the workshop. And then if you want to see what the data looks like, you see that API call returned a data set back to us where we have the median income for the different groups. You see all the median income in America for families is 73,000, and you'll see what they are for other races. And one sad thing that this data points out is that African Americans are dead last. Dead last. It's kind of sad. And we'll see how it plays out. That's a situation for the whole country, but later on, when we do the analysis, we'll be able to see how it plays out for everyone. So, I mean, not everyone, but everywhere in the United States. So we have this raw data set that we got back from the United States Census. But there are some things that we need to do to get the data in a format that we'll be able to use it more easily when we put it into Power BI. And one of those things is for the location and place level, you'll see that we have this field right here that will tell us what geography this data set represents. And to the programmers in the room, you will look at this and you'll think this is a string, but in nationality, it's an object. So we need to get a property out of this object that will, that identifies the location. And that property is the name property of this object that's stored in this field. So we create this function here that does that for us, and we put that function in memory, and we call that function in this cell right here using a lambda function that you see here. And again, for those of you that don't understand this code, if you want to understand this code, I'll be offering a workshop that will explain all of this more thoroughly. So now we have a situation where using this lambda expression, we was able to extract the United States out of this object that's stored in this field, in the geography field. And we were also able to base another field off of that that you see here with the place field. And the result of that is a situation that we have here. You see now we have location and place added to our data set. And you will see how location and place is used when we do our visualization in Power BI. So the last thing we want to do is add additional data point to the data set that we created, and that is identifying the type of query we did. As I said earlier, we're doing 3 types of queries. We're doing a query at the country level, we're doing a query at the state level, and a query at the place level. So we want to identify the record so that when we do our analysis in Power BI, we will know the source of the records. So we did that at the state level, and we need to do the same thing at the country level. We need to do the same thing now at the state level and place level. And since the process is pretty much the same, we would not go through each individual step again, but we'll just execute the code. And you'll see that because we're dealing with a little bit more records, we're dealing with north of 50 records at the state level, the code took a little bit longer to run, and you see what the code looks like. It's the same shape as the code that we use for the country level, but instead of it being one record, there's a record for every state in the United States. And then we need to do the same thing at the place level. And that's going to take a little bit longer to run because we're doing it for majority of these cities and towns in America. And that's going to give us close to 30,000 records. So it did the API call. This code, sent the call out to the Census API, retrieved the data, and now it's in a nice data frame. And you'll see if we use the shape method of this data frame that we created, you'll see that there are 29,573 records that was returned. If we want to see what that data looks like, you'll see that doing peeking at the first 5 rows of that data set, you'll see that we're getting this information at the city, and I don't know what a Banda CDP is. For those of you that are from Alabama, you probably know what a CDP is, but you'll see that we get it at that level as well. And one of the things I want to point out here is that when you're doing data analysis, one of the things that you would notice about data analysis is that when you retrieve data from different sources, a lot of the times that data is not totally clean. A lot of times there will be additional things that you would need to do in order to get your data ready for data analysis. And one of the things here that we would need to do is clean up the information, the data points where we have the negative sign followed by all of these census. That the United States Census put that value there when the situation is such that they did not have enough people for that category to statistically do a calculation for that particular group. So when we see that value right here, they're saying that there was not enough whites in that population to statistically come up with a median income. And the same thing for the other groups that you see that value for. So we need to handle that, and we will do that later on in the code. So right here, what we're doing is the code that precedes this cell right here was mainly working on the data sets from the 3 different types of queries that we did. The query that was at the country level, the query that was at the state level, and the query that was at the place level. Those 3 different queries, the data set that resulted from those 3 different queries are in 3 disparate data sets. We need to combine them into one. And that's what the code right here is doing. It's taking those 3 disparate data sets and putting those data sets into one code. One data frame or one data set. Again, if this, for those of you that are new to this, if you want to go on a deeper dive and really understand how, what the reasons why behind this code and how this code works, then the free workshop will be available to you. And we'll give more information about that. So now we got our data into one data frame. I'll just give you a little peek of what it looks like. We run this cell right here. And then I do a head on here. So you'll see what this looks like. You'll see that it's a data set with the different geographies that we collect the data on the state, country, and place level, and median income for all the groups that the census give us that information on. So the next thing we need to do is now we need to start cleaning up the data and removing those values that represents the areas where we didn't have enough data for the census to do a calculation on. We need to replace that with another value. Okay, so what we do, we take care of that in this code right here, and you'll see that once we do that, this code allow us to take those values that there's a negative, sit, and so on and so forth, replace it with a value in pandas that's known as a NAM. Actually, that value type comes from the NumPy library. And for those of you that come from the database world, you can think of the NAN value similarly in the same fashion that you think of null values. And the NAN, what it stands for is not a number. So it'll allow us to use a value for the situations where there was not a good value for that given data point. So when we do that, that enables us to perform calculations on that column that contains those nines, and it will not affect our calculations. And you'll see more, you'll see why that's beneficial the deeper you go into pandas. But another nice side benefit from this is that when you use like third-party client tools, like if I was to take this information and export it out to Microsoft Excel or a CSV file, these NAM values will convert over to a blank. So that way, when you share with your client tools, you don't have to worry about having to deal with a column that has both a numeric data type and a string with the string NAN in it. So after we did that, there is just a couple more things we need to do. And that is we need to reorder the information in our column. Oh, sorry about that. We need to reorder the information in our data frame, and we want to put them in an order that's more meaningful. And then in addition to that, we want to take out some of the races in here that we're not really concerned with. For instance, the other and the midst. For the purpose of the analysis that we're doing, we don't need that category in our data set. And in addition to that, we don't need this geography field either, because the information we needed from the geography field is contained in the place and the location field. So we handle all that, the reordering of the columns, as well as subsetting out the rows that we don't need in this cell right here. So now we have the data set reordered. And it's reordered with only the columns that we need. The last thing that we're going to do in this workbook to get our data ready for Power BI is that there are some situations where all of the races, if we scroll up here, I think there's an example right here. This is an example right here, where you're looking at Bellefontaine, CDP, Alabama. You'll see that for every single race, even for all, it has a NAN value. In those situations, we don't want to keep that record in our data set because it's meaningless. What value do we get having that record in our data set? So we want to find all situations where this is the case and remove it from our data set. And we're able to do that in this cell right here. And this cell, and this is one of the things that for you all that want to learn more about it, we will need to have a workshop where I can take my time and explain this code to you. But basically what all this code is doing is it's creating a data structure known as a pandas series. And you can think of a pandas series as one column within a data set. And this returning a pandas series that's of the data type of the Boolean data type. And in programming, when you hear the word Boolean, pretty much what that means is it's a data type that either returns true or false. So if we run this code and display it, you'll see that it produced a column of nothing but trues and false. Now it returns true in all the instances where the data set, and I can scroll back up to this data set, it returns true in all the instances where at least one of the races has a value in it. So in this situation for Bellamy CDP, because there is a value in all and there's a value in the black, because there's a value in both of those categories, it will return true. But when you look at the Bellefontaine, where there's no values, they're all in their ends, it will return false for those situations. So that information is used and passed into this part of the code in this cell right here, which will tell pandas to say, okay, whenever true is returned, keep the record. When false is returned, disregard the record. Again, for you, those of you that are familiar with Python and pandas, this code makes sense to you. For those of you that are curious about it and want to learn more, attend the workshop. So after we do that, you'll see that I should have ran this cell up here before I did executed the code. But if we look at the shape of the cell right here, you'll see that the shape of the cell now is 27,000, a little bit north of 27,000. Prior to running this code, there was close to 29,000, well, more than 29,000 records in the data set. So a little bit more than 2,000 records was removed from the data set because those records represented places or locations where there was no median incomes for neither one of the races. So after all of this data wrangling, we now have a data set that we can work with in Power BI. So now that we have this data set of median incomes for all over the United States, we can see how African Americans are doing. We can see, are African Americans doing well in the United States and America? In cities like Atlanta, are we balling down there? You know what I'm saying? In cities like Chicago, are we making a lot of money relative to our counterparts? How are we doing in New York City? How are we doing in DC relative to other races? Now that we got this data in a nice format, we can take this data, go over to Power BI and see what the situation is. So let's go over to Power BI. And this visual that we see here allows us to take that data set and look at it to see how we're doing relative to others in given geographies. So we're gonna start off with my hometown, Indianapolis, Indiana. In Indianapolis, Indiana, Blacks relative to other groups, we're in the 4th spot. And we're 4th behind behind whites, Indian, Asians. And you'll see where we are compared to others. You'll see that whites in Indianapolis, Indiana have a median income. And when you say median, what median means is it's the value right in the center. It's different than mean. Mean is an average. But median is if you had 100 people, let's say 101 people, then the person at the 51st spot would be the median, because there'll be 50 people below him or her, and then there'll be 50 people above him or her. So that's what median is. And median is often used in this type of situation because a lot of times, if you live in a neighborhood with somebody like a Bill Gates or Mark Zuckerberg or the guy Amazon that I'm drawing a blank with, they can grossly affect the mean because they're outliers. But outliers don't have as big of an impact when you're dealing with the median. So with that being said, you see Blacks, their median income for Blacks is 41,000. And if you look over here, that's 55% of what it is for whites. So we've been free. Well, we know the Emancipation Proclamation was what? In 1863. A lot of us didn't find out about it. That's what the Juneteenth thing comes from. Until a few years later, after the Civil War, that was over hundreds of years ago. But still, even after those years of freedom, we're still, relative to others in the great city of Indianapolis, are not doing good compared to our white counterparts. And you'll see that, even though from a country level, as I showed you earlier, we're dead last, in Indianapolis, we're beating out the Spanish and the Spanish and the Pacific Islanders. And then over here, you'll see what it is on a national average. And this will be consistent throughout all the visualizations. You'll see that nationally, Blacks The median income for blacks is 55% of what it is for, for whites. So that's Indianapolis. Let's see, okay, maybe we're doing better in Chicago. Let's go to the great city of Chicago. Whoa. We have some high-powered people in Chicago, but when we look at Chicago relative, blacks relative to others, blacks are dead last. We're dead last. You'll see that blacks relative to whites, we make up, our median income is 35% what it is for whites. And then you see following the whites, the Pacific, the Asians, and the Indians, people who haven't been in this country as long as us are doing much better than we are. So that's Chicago. I know that St. Louis is another area where we have a lot of representation of BDPA. Let's see what we're like there. Again, dead last. So let me see. I'll have any, Deja, let me see if I can unmute you. I'm not getting any feedback, but I'm just, going through this to let you all know what the situation is like here in the United States. So let me take a moment to see if I can. We got a raised hand, John Coleman. Let me see if I can get to you. Deja, is there any way you can control that and give John the ability to ask questions or? Let me see while I talk through this. I'm trying to figure out how to. Okay, I got the chat open. Okay, so well, I'll probably do this. I can't get to the, I can't get to, unmute you all. I'm not figuring how to do that. So I'll go through some of these questions. One of the questions that we have here is, Azan, I hope I'm pronouncing your name correctly. You said, where's the information on the pre-workshop? I will share my contact information and I'll put it in this chat window right now. I'm gonna give you 2 email addresses so that you can't go wrong. The first one is my personal one, and then the first one is my personal one, and the second one is for my day job. If you get on this, okay, if I said I sent it to you only, Deja, can you send it out to the group? I need to change this out to all panelists. Okay, so I will send that out to the whole group. Okay, yeah, so Deja sent it out, that's good. So that'd be the contact information, but in this, excuse me, you can go there to get it. Then I see John Coleman said, except for Lake Forest. That we can look at that. We can go to Chicago and we'll see that where it says, oh, well, then you see, well, this is St. Louis. Let's go back to Chicago. Oh yeah, you said Lake Forest, yeah. Lake Forest, yeah, that's one of the things that, you point out here. We're doing better. That's a good, good thing to point out. But one of the things, John, that it's not safe to do that, to look at that and think that we're doing better. One of the things that we would need to do is we would need to overlay this data with population information. And we would need to know, okay, how many blacks are there? The city, I'm not familiar with Lake Forest, but say Lake Forest is a city of 30,000. And say that of that 30,000, I'm just making up some numbers, there are 100 blacks there. And the 100 blacks that live there are, the CEOs, the black CEOs of Chicago, along with, the NBA, the Chicago Bulls, and the Chicago Bears. Well, even though blacks, the blacks that live there may be doing better, the population of blacks may be low relative to other races. So that'd be another data point that you want to look at. Let me look at another question. Okay, another question was, can I mute? Was in text. Okay, so it seemed like some of those questions were answered. We can go through some of these other data points. We can look at another city, and these cities down here are cities that I chose because they're cities where there is a strong representation of BDPA. And you look at Los Angeles, you see a similar thing where blacks, relative to their white counterparts, we're not even making half of what they're making from a median income standpoint. And then even with that, you'll see that, okay, you'll say that blacks relative to other races we're not dead last like we were in Chicago. We're not dead last like we were in St. Louis. But if you look at it, even though we're not dead last, if you look at the cities where we're doing the best, which is this data set at the bottom, you'll see that we're only in one location. And that is Hillsborough Town, somewhere in California. I'm not familiar with that. Now, when you see these 250 and one on up, those are situations where the census say they stop the highest median income they will have is 250,000. So these may be multi-million-dollar median incomes in California, and they're so wealthy that because of that, they just stop at 250. So their wealth levels may be a lot higher than that. But you see that in that area, even though we're beating out, let's say the Asians and the Pacific Islanders, they're both ahead of us. But you'll see that we're only in one of the locations where the income levels are at the top. And we go to New York City, you have a similar thing where you'll see blacks, we're fourth place in New York City. But even with that, you see that we in New York City, we beat out the Hispanics. But when you look at on the statewide level, you see the Hispanics are in areas where there's a lot of wealth, and we're only in one with some significance, and that's Scarsdale Village. I'm not real familiar with that, but we're doing well in that area. But you see that's the only top location that we're in, top location in terms of median income. And then another one, Gina, she says that the presentation opens up so many thoughts on how statistics must be shared and interpreted in context. Okay, yeah, I agree with that immensely, Gina. I agree with that immensely, because a lot of times in our community, we look towards, entertainers to gauge how well we're doing. We'll have a P. Diddy, we'll have a LeBron James that's doing very well. And we think that our race is doing good as a whole, even that it can be we can have reality TV down in Atlanta, where we have reality housewives and all these other shows where we think that, man, blacks down there in Atlanta, they're holding the bag. But let's look how blacks are really doing in Atlanta. Dead last. Dead last. We're supposed to be running things in Atlanta. We're supposed to be running things in Atlanta. But look where we're at relative to others. In the city of Atlanta, the median income of blacks is 23% of what it is for the median income of whites. The median income for whites in the city of Atlanta is 163,000. It's 37,000 for blacks. And then in the city where we're doing it, in the city where we are running things, look, in the state, well, no, this is at the state level, but in the state level, when you look at Georgia, whites is in every major city or town where, there's a high median income. You see blacks, we're not in, it'll look like we're in half of them, just 4 of them. And even in those areas, like this situation right here in Decatur City, it's a lot of gentrification going on in Decatur. I lived in Atlanta years ago, and it was chocolate then, but I've been told since that a lot of gentrification is going on in that city. And that explains this wide gap right here. How in, one of the, Decatur, where the median income for whites is 169, but it's only 55 for blacks. So that just lets you know that we have a lot of work to do. That's one of the reasons why I'm so passionate about what Terry and some of the other leaders at BDPA are doing, because what BDPA focuses on careers in STEM that can enable people who go in those fields and make a decent living and hopefully become, the owners of, STEM related corporations where they can start generating wealth in our communities. Because you see right now, we are far behind. And then we can go to, it's like, okay, we can say Houston. That's where, a lot of the, some rappers are from. It's a lot of old money in Houston and in Texas, a lot of old money. But in that city where you got all that old money generated from, at first it was oil money, and then now you got new methods of generating revenue down there. You see that in one of the richest states in the country, blacks are dead last. And we were here well before the Asians, well before the Pacific Islanders, well before the Indians. Even with that, we're dead last. But we will see the Jay Princes, we will see, the Beyoncés and think, oh, wow. Or we will see the few successful business people in Houston and think, we're doing great down there. No, we're not. 35% of what the median income for whites is what the median income for blacks is. Now, in this very rich state of Texas, in the locations in Texas, I don't know where any of these cities are, you will see that we're not there. Not in one of them. Even though the sweat, the blood, sweat, and tears of African Americans is what helped make Texas what it is now, we're nowhere where the wealth is or the high medium incomes. But the Asians who came here a lot after we did, long after we did, they're taking advantage of the situation. And their situation is lovely. Look, they're represented in almost all of them. We're not represented in any of the high median income areas in Texas. And this data, as you saw, comes straight from the census. Now, the lowest level of geography that we use in this analysis goes down to what we call the place level, which is like the city, but you can get this information all the way down to what they call the census block group level. Now, the census block group level, that is, you can think of that as, if you're in a city like Indianapolis or a city like Atlanta or any major metropolitan area, you can think of a census block group of almost synonymous as a city block. It's typically, or a couple city blocks, it's typically a small geography that is anywhere between 600, I believe the high point is somewhere around 2,500 people. And the purpose of that geography type or that geography level is that typically when you go down to that level, things are homogenous. Now, when I say homogenous, what I mean by that is that you have situations, and I think I'm getting close on time, you have situations like you have in here in Indianapolis, where you can be in a certain zip code where one corner of the zip code is affluent and another corner of that zip code may be impoverished. Well, the census block group allows you to get around that. So with that being said, if I think I'm getting close to the time. I'm not hearing anything from my proctor, Deja. I think I'm getting close to time. And one of the things I want to do is, if it's even just one person that's very interested in this, as Gina pointed out, the census has a ton of data. They collect data on close to 30,000 data points. Median income is just one of them. Heck, they have one on, how many computers do people have in their homes. So with that being said, that wealth of information can be used for many things. It can be used for marketing, where you may be a sales team and you're trying to do some targeted demographic type of analysis, or it can be used for, you have a nonprofit and you want to use census data to help make your case for, to get funding. There's a lot of information about this. So one of the things is, Robert Joseph said, how do I get access to the Jupyter Notebook? My GitHub site will have that information. It doesn't have it now, but will soon. And the GitHub site, the repository that I'll use for that will be in this repository that I'm putting in the chat. So I will put that up there later. And I will I'll update this GitHub repository with this notebook and other artifacts from this presentation. Are there any other questions? Yeah, so with that being said, you guys have both of my email addresses. If you're interested in the workshop, I will wait till I get responses. Now, hold those responses out for a week. After that, I will we'll get a some sort of Saturday. We'll pick a Saturday in October or some date where it's feasible for everyone, and we'll do that workshop. And this code that we did, we'll do a much deeper dive into the code needed to get data from the census, and also a much deeper dive in how we can use Power BI to do the data visualization. I appreciate being able to present to you guys. It's always an honor to present at BDPA. It's one of my favorite conferences. So with that being said, God bless, and I hope you enjoy the rest of your conference. Thanks a lot. Bye. Oh, yeah, and there was a question. I don't know if anyone is still on. Does your chart take into account sundown towns? Um, I believe some sundown towns are in this Power BI file. You can there's like 30 different towns that you can search on, and it says was this recorded? I would like to watch it and share it with my students. Um, that's a question you need to ask Deja. She'll be able to tell you that. You can reach out to me. And if you need information to share with your students, I'll be more than happy to share this with you. And I'm sending you Garasis. I hope I pronounced your name correctly. Here's my email. Those are both of my email addresses. Yeah. If there are any other questions, I will stick around and monitor the chat window to see if you all have any questions for me. Yeah, Sean, that was from, there's a group called the American Community Survey. And what they do is they do studies and statistical analysis in between the census, in between the decennial, I think I'm saying that correctly, censuses, and they give you numbers for every year in between. So the last census was 2010, and they in 2011, 2012, and so on and so forth, all the years in between, up until the current census, they did recalculations to give you what those figures are, updated since the last census. And we can go over that more if you decide to attend a workshop. You're welcome, Sean. If there's any questions, you can shoot them out in the chat. Wasn't able to. Sorry, we had technical difficulties and wasn't able to do that. And Sean says, and do you have to use Python to extract the data, or are there connectors for Power BI and or Tableau? Boo on Tableau. No, I'm messing with you. I'm messing with you. I'm a Power BI guy, and as you see, I'm writing a book on using Python and R and Power BI. Unfortunately, boo. But I forgive you, Sean. I forgive you. But I'm thinking that if Tableau is anything like Power BI, the Census API is such that it would be complicated to make a generic connector for it. So I'm thinking that that'd be like a case where it would be much easier to use R or Python to get to the data and then visualize it with Tableau. Because like, again, the underlying data, as I showed you earlier, there's it's not like you're just doing what word I'm looking for, just a straight up query, for lack of a better word. When you query the census, you got to give it all kinds of dynamic information. Like, one thing you need to do is you need to tell it what variables you want to use. And then after you tell it what variables you want to use, you got to tell it the level of geography that you want. Do you want at the country level, the state level, or as we saw in this situation, the place level? And then there's other parameters that you can give it that, those parameters will make it hard for someone to encapsulate all that into one connector. Now, is it possible? Yeah. Have they done it yet? I know they haven't done it yet in Power BI, and I don't believe they've done that with Tableau either. But with the code that I showed you today, I mean, it's pretty generic. Once you can use that code and change just a few things to get whatever data points you want. Here we did median income. They also have information, all this information by sex. They have population information. They have wealth information. The census has all kinds of information that you can use. So having that unique skill set where you can use Python to extract that information, I think that does make you much better Tableau compared to your peers, Tableau developer. So with the workshop, as far as keeping an eye on it, send an email to me using one of those email addresses, and that way I can keep you in the loop and let you know when that workshop is. And if you can attend, I'd love to have you. Thank you. So if there's any questions, I'll hang out as long as this session allows me to hang out to answer any questions. And if you have questions about the type of data that's available, ask that question to me. We can go over that as well. Because again, I mean, this stuff, not pretty much any career that's represented in this group, I think, can benefit from this type of data. Like I said earlier, You can use it for marketing. You can use it for nonprofits. You can use it for a lot of reasons. You'd be surprised at the data that the census collect. You'd be very surprised. Okay, so I'll stick around for a couple more minutes. If there's no questions in a couple minutes, I will assume that the people who are left behind are people who probably are not at their computer and not here to get more information. John, man, I appreciate you. Thanks a lot. I'm glad you enjoyed it. All right. Okay, good, Sean. That's good. That's good. I'm pretty, that's the only social media that I'm pretty active on is LinkedIn. So I'll keep you posted on that. I'm glad you enjoyed it. Thanks. You have a great day as well and have a great conference. Hopefully next year, all you all that I see in this session, hopefully we'll be able to see each other in person next year and be able to, I guess we got to do the elbow bumps now. We won't be able to do the handshakes anymore. Okay. All right, great. Cybersecurity, that's big. That's real big. And Karen, I think you can probably reach out to Deja. I think she said her computer crashed and she wasn't on it, but the organizer will let you know if it's recorded or not. But if you have any questions about the information that I shared, please reach out to me. And also, I will make sure you get the information. And then, okay, with the Chicago chapter, I've been wanting to link up with y'all because I'm not too far from y'all. So, that'd be great. It'd be great to do, start out with a virtual presentation, but I'll also like to, link up with y'all because there's some things I want to do in Chicago. So it'd be nice to be able to link up with my BDPA family in Chicago. So this send that information out to me. I'd be happy to work with you all. Okay, so that's it, man. I'm going to sign off. It was great meeting with you all. I appreciate the opportunity to present at this conference. Hope you enjoy the rest of the conference. I know Terry and his team has done a great job of doing this thing virtually. So enjoy, what's left. See you all virtually in a future session. I'm sorry. Thanks. Bye.